presidential comments?
I have none.
Trustees' comments?
I have a comment, I guess. May 4th was my first meeting and swearing as an elected trustee. It's hard to believe, I guess it's been almost 3 months. During my campaign, traffic concerns came up repeatedly from different residents that I spoke with. So I was hoping to gauge the board's level of interest in having some meaningful dialogue around 2 traffic-related topics. Number 1, the addition of right turn lanes at key intersections, and number 2, review of traffic signal timing at key day parts. I would like to gauge your interest by making a formal motion to add those 2 topics to our committee of the whole agenda within the next 45 days. Any second?
This is typically, you don't need a motion to ask for that, trustee O'Rourke. You just can put it out there, and staff will be happy to try to schedule it in on a future cow.
Clarification, I know Mr. Murphy has offered to add that to an agenda in the future. Are you still looking for a second to actually take action by the board to legally tell staff to put this on the agenda? Or are you okay with Administrator Murphy's promise to go ahead and address this at a later date?
You guys want to formalize it? I made the motion.
You know,
Excuse
it's
me.
difficult to formalize.
Let him, let Jen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just point of order, since it's not on the agenda, I mean, and I think it's been covered by Mr. Murphy, but I mean, action items have to be on the agenda to take formal action. Something like this, you don't really need, you know, formal action, you just request it, but just, that's more for the future.
So my motion was inappropriate?
Not needed, I
Yeah, I think it's not needed is what my suggestion is.
believe. Not that it wasn't appreciated, Mr. O'Rourke. Just wasn't needed.
I guess, yeah.
So would you like a second to let the board vote on this, or?
My concern is that there's different topics.
Excuse me, Mr. O'Rourke, is there a possibility you could speak into the microphone so it could be transmitted not only to the public but also to myself?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I don't think a motion is needed. I think if you wanted to follow up on it, I would wait another month from now and ask the question, when is it on the agenda? You asked for it in 45 days, so give them 30 days to put it on a committee of the whole, and
Well, that's all I was asking for, just to have discussion, to get it to the committee. I'm not asking
Oh,
for
yeah.
a formal vote on anything. I'm just wanting to have
request it.
discussion.
It should
That's-
get it there, but if you want to double check, I would check within a month and say, hey, where's the status? When is it coming up? Because, yeah, we'd like to, talk
Yeah,
about
because
it.
I guess my thought is that budgets will be coming up for discussion fairly soon as well. So it'd be nice to have some of this discussion prior to the budgets, to see if there's certain things that we might want to include with those budgets, that's all.
Good. Transportation is the #1 issue. It has been for a long time, so, but you're after some specific issues, which are appropriate too for discussion.
Thank you.
But we'll help you get on the agenda, so.
I would agree. I'd like to see it on a cow. Because I think the subject has come up along the way with different people at different times, not just directly like that. So I think that would be a good opening for discussion for a future cow.
Thank you. I guess I will withdraw my motion.
Are there any other trustee comments? That this would be time for public comments. If there are no public comments, then we'll proceed with the business meeting. We're seeking a motion to approve the agenda.
A move.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassich? Thank you. That motion carries. We're seeking motion to approve the consent agenda to include minutes of the board meeting held on July 20th and bills paid and bills payable reports for August 3rd.
So moved?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Trustee Rassich? Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Presence Healing Arts Pavilion sign variance. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance number 3222, granting approval of a variance to permit a monument sign with less than 800 linear feet of separation for the property located at 16615 South Route 59.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
Question from Mr. Garrigan. One of the things we left in the last time we touched this subject was the lighting on the sign. Have they come back to you with anything more?
They
on
have
that?
not specifically come up with a specification for the lighting, but obviously, as you know, they'll still have to file a permit for this. We'll review that permit, make sure that signage or that lighting specifically consistent with our ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
We're hoping it's going to be backlit.
I had one question, Michael. I thought in one of the reports for the planning commission maybe that it talked about the second sign was going to be smaller than the other sign, the primary sign. Was that correct?
That's correct.
But it didn't say what the sizes were. Is it significant difference?
It's
or
not. It's
minor?
not significant. I mean, this is a little larger than your typical directional signage, but it'll be slightly smaller than a monument sign that is located on Route 59.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not the motion was made and seconded to adopt ordinance number 3222, granting approval of a sign variance or approval of a variance to permit a monument sign with less than 800 linear feet of separation for the property located at 16615 South Route 59. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassik?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 12465 Falcon Drive fence variance. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance number 3223, granting approval of a variance to permit placement of a fence in the corner side yard for the property located at 12465 South Falcon Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
I just had, I guess, a question more for staff than anything. Has there been discussion in the past about reviewing our ordinance, maybe making a change? Because I know that there's been a number of corner lots that have come forward and have gotten approval.
Correct.
Rather than make the residents go through a variance process, I'm sure they would like it a lot easier if they knew that that was the standard, and maybe, you know, we do it where it's 50% of the side yard, you know, not to exceed 10 feet closer to the sidewalk, or come up with some language that might work. And then if there's a special case, then it would become a variance as opposed to all these a variance.
You know, you're correct. You've seen a trend recently in fence variances. It's actually been an ongoing, probably the most prominent or most number of variances that we see in the village point blank are fence variances. And therefore, based on that fact, we have had numerous discussions at the Plan Commission over actually since the newest zoning ordinance was adopted and modified. Several times the staff did discuss that, specifically the zoning commission, the original zoning commission that just approved our last major update of the zoning ordinance. There did not appear to be any support for that. Staff would be more than happy to explore with the Plan Commission and ultimately the village board to see if there is support for modifying the fence ordinance to allow to at least modify the current language regards to corner setback limitations. But you're correct. We've seen a lot of variances over the past year for corner side yards, fences.
Just seemed like it could remove maybe an unnecessary burden for the homeowners, that's all.
We can look into it.
Good, but there's a reason for doing what we do, the variance, because it's line of sight around the corners. And we're trying to avoid that. So everything that we've proved a variance for, it doesn't impact any of the neighbors. Like this one, it backs up to a cul-de-sac or a street that doesn't have any other traffic on it or something like. Anyway, we need to be very careful, I think, where we do that. I was part of the original group along with you that wrote the ordinance, and I think there's a lot of logic for it. I mean, it's worth, considering it, but from my point of view, I think the variance process in this case makes some sense. Signs, a different matter. I think we'd rather take a look at the signs. We've talked about that in the past too, and we have a rather extensive sign ordinance, and we can maybe make that a little bit easier. Some people say other municipalities have 3 pages. We've got 32 or something like that. So maybe we have overdone that one, but it's worth considering. We had to challenge anything we have, but I think there's some logic, at least for the corner lots ones, from my perspective, because I do attend the Plan Commission as well as the Village Board, and I'm looking for very specific things that doesn't impact anybody else. And then it's a legitimate variance, I think, to do that.
Again, you're correct. I think the zoning commission, based on my recollection, the two biggest issues were obstructions of the site triangle between the two streets that meet, and secondly, the potential that somebody's side yard would be in somebody's front yard, and there was concerns about that. So those were kind of the two foundation points why the zoning commission at that point did not support a major modification, but staff would be more than happy to discuss that with the planning commission, and if support, bring it on to the village board.
Okay, thank you.
That's some good discussion. I do remember the first case that was brought up. There was a pretty much a telephone book size amount of medical documents where there was a disabled child. So that was an extreme circumstance where we approved a side lot variance. But Mr. Green does bring up some good points that there is a line of sight issue with having a side lot fence. One thing I would like to see in the future, if we are going to bring this up for discussion, which I'm okay with, is what's to stop somebody from putting up bushes or trees that can be more, that can block line of sight just as much as a fence. So in my opinion, having an ordinance that says you cannot have a side lot fence, but you can put up 10-foot tall bushes that you can't see through, really doesn't address the line of sight issue. So I would at some point like to see the ordinance come forward and us then discuss and figure out, is it really a line of sight issue? If it is, then we need to address bushes and trees that affect line of sight and not just single out and say fences. But I do support the process and our agenda item tonight to move forward with a variance based on the circumstances. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not, the motion was made and seconded to adopt ordinance number 3223, granting approval of a variance to permit placement of a fence in the corner side yard at 12465 South Falcon Drive. Trustee Benucci,
Yes.
Trustee Lamb,
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke,
Yes.
Trustee Peck,
Yes.
Trustee Rassich. Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Edward South Plainfield Medical Office. We're seeking board consideration of a motion approving the site plan review for a 6,250 square foot addition to the existing Edward South Plainfield Medical Office located at Dayfield and Route 59.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
I have one. There was a concern brought to me about they're closing the one part of the parking lot and then extending the other. And in the meantime, I guess staff is parking in the neighborhood quite a bit to accommodate that. And so I had a question on the timeline of when they expect to, how much time this is going to be before that parking lot is ready for them to use again.
Well, they expect to basically start breaking ground as quickly as possible. In fact, they're hoping to get going in the next month. We will make sure that we work with them on the timing of the closing of the northern parking lot and the construction of the parking lot to the south. But if there's parking in the neighborhood, there shouldn't be. So I think we'll work with code enforcement to address that right away. That should not be happening. What they've assured us from day one is that there will be sufficient parking on site during the transition to basically address the needs of this facility.
Perfect.
So it's more of a transitional challenge, so we can work with the applicant on that.
Are there any other comments or questions? If not, the motion was made and seconded to approve the site plan review for Edward South Plainfield Medical Office located at Dayfield and Route 59. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassich?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Cupcake Ordinance. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance number 3224, permitting the sale of home baked goods consistent with Section 4 of the Food Handling Regulation Act.
So move.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll proceed with the roll. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassich?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 25th anniversary of the Plainfield tornado. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to authorize the road closures as identified in the staff report on August 28th from 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
Chief, are you looking at 2:30 to 4:30, or in the report it's till 4 o'clock?
We are, the presentation should only last till about 3:45 or 4 o'clock, but we do want a little leeway there just in case it does go over.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Then I'll proceed with the roll. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassich?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Administrators report.
No report.
Management Services report.
No report.
Engineers report.
No report.
Planning Department report. Building Department report.
No report.
Public Works report.
Good evening. Public Works has 2 items tonight for your consideration. The first is an intergovernmental agreement with the Plainfield Township Highway Department for the resurfacing work on River Road. The information's in your packet. There's an exhibit as well showing the limits of paving that this would take care of between the village of Plainfield, the Plainfield Township Highway Department, and the Plainfield Park District. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Couple of quick questions. One, I see you have to raise the road 2 feet where the bridge is coming across now. It's just a bicycle bridge or a pedestrian bridge?
Pedestrian bridge, yes.
Does then the pathway go underneath the road? Why the 2 feet increases? Why is that required?
To make the bridge work over the river and to have the freeboard so that if flooding occurs, the water will pass underneath the pedestrian bridge. The abutment has to be a certain height. And then taking into account the ADA requirements for slope for the ramp coming off the ped bridge, the road has to be elevated approximately 2 feet. The elevation of the roadway is actually part of the Park District's project that was just bid last Friday. They had 7 bids. Deconstruction was a low bidder on that. So we're trying to coordinate the repaving of River Road with that project as well as the Plainfield Township Highway Department.
Yeah, it's a good move to coordinate with 3. And we're starting to get more of these, which is good. It's more efficient and so on. So that if you're going to go across the road on a bike, you're going on the surface, not underneath it at all. Because the picture shows it go either way. I wasn't sure which way it was going. Okay, thank you.
I had a question. I believe in your report you indicated that that section of the road was already earmarked for resurfacing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Next year, but we moved it up to
So instead of resurfacing, we're going to rebuild. And I think there's an estimate in here. Do you know what the difference between the original budget amount for the resurfacing versus this amount of budget?
Village is only resurfacing. It's to grind and overlay with some patching here and there. The Park District project is actually reconstructing the roadway in that small section to elevate it to the
Oh, so we're not doing it. We're just resurfacing as planned.
resurfacing. There'll be a little bit of minor grading.
Oh, okay. So the 2 feet section is the Park District? Okay, thank you.
That's included in that.
Are there any other comments or questions? And that would be seeking board consideration of a motion to authorize the village president to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the Plainfield Township Highway Department for resurfacing work on River Road between Fort Beggs and Renwick.
So move.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassich? Thank you. That motion carries.
Next item we have is the 2015 concrete curb and sidewalk program. We received bids back on July 29th, and the low bidder is Davis Concrete. They've done work for us in the past and have been an acceptable contractor. If you have any questions about this program, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
Yes, I just had a question from a resident's point of view. How are the curbs selected? In other words, which curbs are identified as get redone and which ones are not, don't get selected?
Well, either they're structurally deficient, either they've been hit by a snowplow, or tree roots have popped them up, or they've just heaved from the freeze-thaw process that happens in the spring. And then we visually go out and inspect it. We determine how many feet of the curb needs to be removed to maintain the flow line and keep the water going to the structure.
And I'm guessing that that's limited by the budget. So in other words, when you go into a certain area, do you try to do all the curbs that needed in that area or not necessarily?
A large majority of the locations come in as resident issues, so we'll go out and investigate it, and then we will look around the area to see if there's any other areas that somebody else hasn't called in on it yet. So that's how that's predominantly.
So if there was an area that was done one year, It's not that those residents, and maybe theirs didn't get done, but they felt it did, that they didn't call. They could call now, even though that area was done maybe last year, or not, that won't fall into that.
That could happen.
Okay.
But we're pretty much maxed out this year's budget.
Right,
We
so
take that into account.
next year. So if they have issues, they should call now for maybe next year.
We have a pretty good list this year, so we should be in almost every subdivision this year.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions? Now we'll be seeking board consideration of a motion to authorize the village president to award the 2015 concrete curb and sidewalk program to Davis Concrete, the low bidder, in the amount of $150,183.85.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Trustee Rassich?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Police chief's report.
Thank you. I just have one item tonight. I'm seeking the board's authorization to sell 6 vehicles that have used their usefulness. Some of these vehicles were single-use vehicles within the police department. Several of them were multi-purpose, though. We acquired them at the police department or Public Works, and then Pima used them for several years as well. But all 6 of these vehicles, because of the mileage gain, the maintenance issues, and the safety issues, are no longer feasible to be used within our fleet. So we would be seeking the village board's approval to authorize the sale of these vehicles. Any money gained from the sale of these vehicles would go back into the village's general fund.
Question, Chief. Will these go over to the auction place on Route 53? I go by that with some frequency, or I have recently, and it's, who gets access to buy those things? The public does not, is that correct?
No, those are open to the public. They have, I don't know the exact dates, I can get you that information, but they have so many dates per month where the public can actually come in and bid on these vehicles and whatever other vehicles they have in their lot.
Yeah, I thought the signs kind of said something about dealers only, but it does have, the public does have access to
As
them.
far as I know, I believe the public has access.
I was just curious, because I know we talked before, if you get more than $1,000, it all comes back to us. There's a slight selling fee with 10%, something like that, or?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So it's a fair way to turn things over. I just like to make sure the public has access to those, or somebody must buy these things.
I see used police cars driven around all the time, so not necessarily ours, but I do see them driven around all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Chief, is the minimum price $1,000, is that set by the auction house, or how is that established?
That's typically set by us. We have a arrangement with the auctioneer that we look for at least $1,000 minimum. And typically, we do get that price for the vehicles. Sometimes we get above that, depending on the condition and the buyers. But I believe that's a price that we arrange with the seller.
The only reason I guess I look, and there's a 2001 versus a 2009. I'm guessing that the 2009 has got to be worth, if the 2001 is worth $1,000, the other one's got to be worth substantially more. That's all. But I'm guessing it's an auction, so somebody bids it up, and I'm guessing there's a decent number of bidders, so it maximizes the value to the village.
Yeah, in some instances, as Trustee Lamb pointed out, it's the dealers that are coming in and buying these in bulk, if you will, maybe buying a truckload at a time or something like that. But in some instances, just the person that wants to come in and get a cheap used police car or municipal vehicle.
To answer the question as well, yes, we have gotten more than $1,000 on the cars that go through there. It's just a stated minimum, so that we aren't going to sell it for anything less than that. This is also an agreement that we have in place with the Will County Governmental League, so they've done the bidding process for us to make sure that the contracts are all vetted and proper and in place for us.
A point of clarification, Chief, if possible, can you coordinate with our village administrator and our staff as far as making the public aware of the date and times where they can view these vehicles? If there's something that can be put on the website, or if it's going to be in on a water bill or one of the village mailers. If there's a way to actually advertise this to increase public awareness and let our, members of our community know that they can come see these vehicles and bid on them, that'd be great.
We can work with the auto dealership and the auction house and work on that. Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Would it be, I'm sorry, would it be possible to get just a follow-up after they're sold to kind of get an idea of what the actual sale prices were for each vehicle, so we can?
I can try to do that. It may be several weeks, but I can
That's
try to
fine.
do that. Yes.
Understand, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? If not, we'd be seeking board consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance number 3225, authorizing the sale of personal property.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassich?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Attorney's report.
No report, thank you.
Reminders.
August 4th is our planning commission. August 6th is our next concert in the park. I believe it's the last one for the season. August 10th is our next committee of the whole. The 12th will be coffee with the mayor. The 13th is the HPC meeting, and the 17th will be our next village board meeting.
We're seeking motion to adjourn to executive session as permitted under the Open Meetings Act under Section 2C6 to discuss the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body, not to reconvene.
So move.
Second.
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee O'Rourke?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Rassich?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.